யாருக்கு இவருக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்காது அந்த சீனியருக்கு கிடைச்சாலும் கிடைச்சிருக்கா
All right, let's start. Okay, so what we shall do, we shall chant the fourth verse of Durga Suktam together, which we already chanted in our last class. Then the fifth one, we shall take up fifth one. We shall read the fifth one in English together. Then we shall learn to chant the fifth verse of Durga Suktam. So this is the fourth verse that we already learned to chant. Let's try it again together, okay? First slowly, then a bit in a fast pace. Vishwanino Durgaha Jata Veda Sindhunna Nava Durita Tiparshi Agne Atrivan Manasa Grinano Asmakam Bodhavita Tanunaam. Let's try once more. Vishanino Durgaha Jata Veda Sindhunna Nava Durita Tiparshi Agne Atrivan Manasa Grinano Asmaakam Bodhavita Tanunaam. Now we shall first read the English translation of the next verse. Okay, let's read it aloud together. We offer our oblations to the fire of Durga to cross over this very difficult ocean of worldly existence. She is the great fire who is invincible in battle and charges ahead in a terrible manner, conquering the enemies. We invoke her together from the highest assembly, that is, ardently invoke her together with the greatest reverence. May that Agni, fire of Durga, carry us over this world full of great difficulties by charging ahead and burning to ashes the very difficult enemies within us with her divine fire. Now, in this fifth verse, we shall again encounter this symbol, which is pronounced as gum. Okay, Jita gum. Then Ugra Magnigam. Okay, gum. G and M over that is pronounced as So this one will be first call and response, then together. All right. Pritana Jitagam. Pritana Jitagam. Sahamanam. Sahamanam. Ugramagnigam. Ugramagnigam. Hubema. Paramat. Hubema Paramat. Sadhish Sadhashthat. Sadhasthat. Sorry, here it will be like this. Sadhasthat. Sadhasthat. Sanah Parshadati. Sanah Parshadati. Durgani Vishwa. Durgani Vishwa. Shamaddevo. Shamaddevo. Ati Durita Tagnihi. Ati Durita Tagnihi. Okay, let's try to chant together. Pritana Jitagam Sahamanam Ugramagnigam Hubema Paramat Sadhasthat. Sana Parshadati. Durgani Visha. Shamaddevo. Ati Durita Tagnihi. Once more. Pritana Jitagam Sahamanam Ugramagnigam Huvema Paramat Sadhasthat. Sana Parshadati. Durgani Vishwa. Shamaddevo. Ati Durita Tagnihi. All right. As I said again and again, this chant is indeed difficult. Okay, so it's all right if we falter, if we stumble upon, no harm in that. So we are studying Narada Bhakti Sutras, a text on divine love. So first Narada spoke about the nature of divine love, and by that he meant Parabhakti, that is supreme love, which is goal of bhakti. To achieve that kind of supreme spontaneous love for God, that is called Parabhakti, when we don't need to practice anything. The love for God is natural in us, spontaneous in us, that is called Parabhakti. First he discussed about Parabhakti, then he discussed about why the path of bhakti is superior to other paths. And in the third section that we are now into, Narada is speaking about how to cultivate Parabhakti, how to reach to the state of Parabhakti. What are the practices of Parabhakti or practices of bhakti? Practices of bhakti is called Aparabhakti or Vaidhi Bhakti. And the goal is called Parabhakti, Sadhanani. So he spoke about 5 practices. One is restrain from excessive sense pleasures. Then restrain from hankering after sense pleasure. Third one is prolonged and sustained spiritual practice. That is, try to adore Lord as much as you can do. Fourth one was Shravana, hearing or reading about holy lives. or people who have been inspired by divine love, and more importantly, listening or reading about the life of God incarnates, incarnations of God. Okay, their incidents in their life, their deeds, their lila pastimes. And fifth was singing the glory of God. Singing included chanting, then also mantra japa, that is repetition of mantra, and congregational singing, all these. Then Narada introduced the sixth topic or sixth sadhana, and he said, chiefly, however, bhakti flourishes in our heart only through the grace of great people, or even a little bit of grace from the God. This is very important, and that's why he dedicates quite a few aphorisms on this topic of association with the great. Association with great means those who have already realized God. In other words, who are illumined already. And Narada says, chiefly bhakti flourishes from inspiration from those kind of people. And he also says, today he will be saying more about this association with the great Mahat Kripa. Okay, aphorism number 39. Let us have a look at it. Aphorism 39, which says, Mahat Sangaha tu durlabhaha agamyaha amoghaha cha. So let's read it together aloud. Mahat Sangaha tu durlabhaha agamyaha amoghaha cha. So if we arrange it in a, what we call syntax, tu mahat sanga durlabha agamya cha amoghaha. Tu means but, mahat sangaha, company of the great, is durlabha, hard to get, agamyaha, incomprehensible, cha, and amoghaha, infallible. Infallible. So the aphorism means, but the company of the great people is hard to get, incomprehensible, and infallible. This is very important aphorism for us to ponder over. Ponder over. So the word but, that is tu, has been used to highlight the fact that although company of great people is so important in nurturing bhakti or divine love, it is not so easily available. So that's why he uses the word durlabhaha. Durlabhaha means hard to get. Why hard to get? There are several reasons why company of really great people is hard to get. Number one, great people are rare in numbers. Those who are illumined, who have realized God, those who can confidently say that yes, I have seen God. And you can also see God. Those kind of great people are rare. And if we can meet such people, any doubt about the existence of God is removed from our mind. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 3 says that among thousands of human beings, only a rare one strives for liberation, that is, for spiritual goal. And even among those who strive, a rare one knows me in reality. So, first of all, not many people take to spiritual life. Secondly, not many of them really reach the highest goal. So naturally, real great people who have realized the truth and can inspire us are very rare. This is one reason, rarity of great people. Second is inaccessibility. Even if there is such a great person, maybe they live at a far off place. So physically, it is not possible for me to go and meet such a person. And sometimes that great person may be inaccessible, that is, may be reluctant to associate with people, may be reluctant, because we cannot simply assume that one who has reached such a state will be always in a attitude of associating with people. They may not, and thus we see that many great people, saints, sages, down the centuries, they have lived in caves or deserts. Okay, so we may not get them at all. They don't want to come out. So that is why difficult to get their company. Third one is difficult to recognize great people. How we can recognize great people? It is not always easy to recognize great people. As I said in my last class, that really great people, they don't themselves won't advertise their greatness because they don't think themselves as great. They may not advertise themselves. And they may look like quite ordinary. Even if we come across them, we may not even recognize that this is a great man. Holy Mother Sarada Devi used to say that one does not grow two horns after realizing God. The person remains same outwardly. So outwardly, this person may appear just an ordinary person. So that's why we see that many people could not recognize great people. Not everybody could recognize Jesus Christ. Not everybody could recognize Gautama Buddha. Not everybody could recognize Sri Ramakrishna. Or Holy Mother Sarada Devi was so simple outwardly that hardly anybody would think that she is such a great soul. That's why we find, in Sri Ramakrishna used to live in the Kineshwar garden house. So many people mistook him to be and one of the other employees, workers there. And someone thought he is a gardener. So asked him, hey, can you bring me this flower? And Sri Ramakrishna said, sure. He went and brought a flower for him. Like that. So outwardly, they may not be. They look just may look like ordinary person. We may not recognize it. So if we cannot recognize, how we can really go and have association with them? Fourthly, sometimes they may repel us even. That is, their behavior may be so eccentric that they may repel us. We read in Narada Bhakti Sutra, in this text alone, aphorism 6, that having reached that paravakti, one becomes intoxicated, that is, may look like crazy, becomes still, stabdha bhavati, becomes absorbed in the bliss of self. They may look like a crazy person. For example, many people around the Khineshwar thought Sri Ramakrishna was a crazy person because his behaviors was unusual. Unusual in the sense that he was a priest. Sometimes, instead of worshipping the image of Divine Mother Kali, he would worship himself. Sometimes he would worship a cat. So these things were beyond the understanding of common people. They thought he was a crazy person. In fact, he earned the nickname that the crazy Brahmin of the Khineshwar. Even Swami Vivekananda thought for quite some time after meeting Sri Ramakrishna that this man is probably crazy. So their behavior may sometimes appear very unusual and may repel us from approaching them. They might sometimes scold us for no apparent reason. In our very first meeting, for example, Sri Ramakrishna scolded M. Mahendranath Gupta, who recorded the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In their very first meeting, 3 times he scolded to crush, his ego, his false sense of ego. And because Mahendranath Gupta persisted, then only other things could happen. He stuck around, and then he found what a gem of a person Sri Ramakrishna was. One of our Swamis, who was in Portland for many years, Swami Ishadhyanananda ji, was known for his scolding people sometimes furiously. And it used to throw people off, throw many people off. But those who stuck around got benefited because he was a realized soul. And there is a saying also that it is difficult to live with a saint. It's difficult to live with saint. However, so the point is their behavior sometimes may be very unusual from our social conventions. So even if we hear that there is a great person there, we go and see behavior is crazy, appearing crazy. So it may repel us. We may not get the benefit of association with that. However, we should remember that it is not absolutely necessary that a great person will always look like a crazy person. Not necessarily. It could be one of the, sometimes they may look like, but it is not that this is someone simply because someone is crazy, that person is a great person. Fifth problem of difficulty of having real association with great people is there may not be any real communion. That is, even if we come in contact with such a great person, there may not be any real spiritual communion with such a person. That is what we see, that many people heard about Sri Ramakrishna's greatness. They came to see Sri Ramakrishna, but there was not much spiritual communion. They came, saw, asked a few questions, sometimes very worldly questions, and went away. So there was no real spiritual communion. That is another reason that even we can come in contact with a great person, but may not be benefited. And sixth, this is very important, I feel, that lack of receptivity. So we may go to a great person, but we may not be receptive to receive what they have to offer. And if we are not receptive, we may not get the benefit of their company. It is said, in Zen Buddhism that a student came to the teacher and started speaking so much about what he has already studied, what he already knows. Then the teacher, to teach him the lesson, asked to bring a cup which is full of tea, full to the brim with tea. And then he started pouring tea in that cup. And the student could see that whatever tea the teacher was pouring into the cup was simply overflowing. Then the teacher said, look, if you are already full, how you can receive what I have to give it? So receptivity is also very, very important to have real communion with great people. For all these reasons, and there are many more reasons probably, for which the association with great people, which is so important in spiritual life, could be really very hard, very difficult. Second one, he says about this holy company or company of great people, is that agamyaha, that is incomprehensible. That is, the influence of holy people is very subtle. That is, we don't understand it at the very beginning, that how it is affecting us. The effect takes place slowly, gradually, and imperceptibly. And this is true about any influence. Like any influence, we don't understand that how it is, any influence, any company we are keeping, and with time we see that our ideas, our thinkings, our ideologies all getting shaped because of this company, but it happens slowly. I think it is like, walking while holding someone's hand and not being mindful about the walk. And suddenly we realize that we have come a long way. This is what the effect of holy company is. Acharya Shankara in his Vivek Chudamani very poetically describes this slow and imperceptible effect of holy company. He says that there are peaceful, magnanimous, and calm souls who live like spring season, that is, spring season doing good to others without any motive whatsoever. So wonderful verse number 37 of Vivek Chudamani. Shanta mahanto nivasanti santo basantavat loka hitam charanta. Basanta means spring. Loka hitam means doing good to others. That is, doing good here means inspiring in divine love. And who are this? Shanta. They are peaceful people and magnanimous, very generous. And Shanto, calm souls who, like the spring seasons, wherever they touch, they do good to others. As the spring does its work imperceptibly, so does these great people, this holy company. Or we may say that they plant a seed in our soul, which in time grows slowly, and without our own understanding, without our own being conscious of it, we gradually transform. Sister Nivedita also nicely expressed this fact when she wrote a letter to Holy Mother Sarada Devi from, I think, Boston. She writes, "Surely the wonderful things of God are all quiet, stealing unnoticed into our lives. The air and the sunlight and the sweetness of gardens and of the Ganges. These are the silent things that are like you." That is, Holy Company is also such a silent effect on us that it transforms us imperceptibly, slowly. That's why agamya, which is difficult to understand how it acts on us, how it is acting on us. And finally, amogha, that is infallible. Even if we may not comprehend the effect of Holy Company or company of great men, great people, transformation is the sure thing. Transformation is bound to happen. And this is true for any kind of association, not only association with lovers of God. Any person who is passionate about anything, especially if they are passionate about with some noble intention, we also catch the passion for sure. Company of holy people is also no exception. Transformation is bound to happen. That is what we see in the history. For example, Girish Chandra Ghosh, the devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, who was at first skeptic and not only that, bohemian and whatnot, he used to say that there is hardly any sin I have not committed, but gradually I became a changed person with my association with Sri Ramakrishna. Without his own knowledge, Girish Chandra Ghosh transformed topsy-turvy. And Sri Ramakrishna also used to say that it's like a sting by cobra, king cobra. So the poison will surely have its effect on you. Then we see life of Angurimal, a great highwayman, a infamous highwayman who lived at the time of Buddha. He used to kill people and make garlands of their severed fingers. But once he met Gautama Buddha, he was a changed person. He was a changed person. He totally changed from his violent way of life and changed to a peaceful way of life. Then Master Mahasaya, Mahendranath Gupta, the aim recorder of gospel, he was skeptic, but association with Sri Ramakrishna gradually changed him so much that he became an ardent devotee of God. So much so, throughout his life, after he came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna, throughout his life he only talked about God and inspired countless people in the path of bhakti, countless people. So many people in Calcutta used to go to his residence to meet him and hear about God. Recently, I read the book, a portion of the book by Paul Brunton, a search in secret India. So there he says about Master Mahasaya, Mahendranath Gupta, that he heard about M from a co-passenger in a train. And then he goes to Kolkata and meets M. After meeting M, spending probably 2-3 sessions with him, he concludes his observation about M. He writes, "If anyone could free me from the intellectual skepticism to which I cling and attach me to a life of simple faith, it is undoubtedly the Master Mahashaya, that is Mahendranath Gupta. So Mahendranath Gupta, who was a skeptic, who did not believe in personal God or devotion, how much transformed a person he became that he himself could inspire devotion and faith in others. Why it is so that what is so important or so powerful, irresistible about great people? That is their power of conviction. This is irresistible. As I said, that to us, God, Brahman, Atman, these are all ideas, concepts. We have not had really realized these things. But if one who has realized and speak confidently with conviction, yes, I have seen God, and you also can see, there is such a power in that conviction that you simply cannot deny it. There is so much power. That is what we find in Swami Vivekananda. He had so much curiosity, spiritual curiosity. He met several great people at that time, that is, those who were popular, famous, and giving spiritual discourses and things like that. And he asked this question, this very important question to all of them, that have you seen God? And he could not get a clear answer from anybody. Sri Ramakrishna was the first person who said, Swami Vivekananda, yes, I have seen God, and more clearly than what I am seeing you now. And if you wish, I can also show you God. You can also see God. So that is the power of conviction. And that is why Narada is putting so much emphasis on the company of the great. So summary of this aphorism 39 is, the company of the truly great people is difficult to obtain and their effect is incomprehensible, but the effect is infallible. That is, it definitely will have it on our life today or tomorrow. That is aphorism 39. Next is aphorism 40. Labhyate api tat kripaya eva. Api labhyate kripaya tat eva. So let's read this together. Labhyate api tat kripaya eva. Api means nevertheless. Labhyate, it is obtained. Kripaya, by the grace of. Tat, God, eva, alone. So nevertheless, it is obtained through the grace of God alone. It means, it here refers to the company of great people. So, the previous aphorism can paint a picture in our mind that company of truly great people is difficult. So here, in a note of encouragement, it says api. Api means nevertheless, even though it is difficult, company of great people could be possible, that is, could be obtained by the grace of God. So if we are fortunate enough, we can get the company of great people. We should consider it as God's grace if we come in contact with great people. And great people means those people who have realized God, touched God. So it is, let's think it this way, how God's grace is playing. It is the divine power in us, in an aspirant, which make us search for the great ones. Because the desire to have the company of great people is not an ordinary desire. This desire arises only through the grace of God alone. If that desire arises in us, we should consider it as God's grace. And it is again the divine power alone which brings the great people in contact with the aspirant. God's will alone that brings the great ones in contact with the aspirant. So it is the divine power alone that brings the seeker and the great people together, sometimes in mysterious ways. By chance, it sometimes happens. It is said, it is believed that when the seeker is ready, the inspiration of great people also arrive. That is a mysterious law of the universe. That is, if a seeker is sincerely looking for a company of great people, guidance of a great person, they also mysteriously arrive. And about this, company of great people, Acharya Shankara in Vivek Chudamani at the very beginning, verse 3, he mentions something. He says, there are three things which are rare indeed and which are due to the grace of God. And what are those three things which are possible only through the grace of God? That is a human birth, the longing for liberation, that is longing for spiritual growth or longing for attaining our spiritual growth. And thirdly, protecting care of a perfected soul. Durlabham trayam eva etat deva anugraha hetukam. Rare indeed are these three things. And these rare three things are only possible through the grace of the God. One is the human birth. Mokshatvam means, as I said, desire to reach our spiritual goal. Or we may say even the desire to have a spiritual life at all. And thirdly, Mahapurusha Samshayaha, a contact with a really great person. These three are indeed, if we get all these three, then it is only possible through divine grace alone. And spiritual history is replete with such incidents. M, which I am referring to again and again in today's class, that is Mahendranath Gupta, came to meet Sri Ramakrishna at a time when he was contemplating suicide, contemplating committing suicide. And he was in a very bad shape of mind. One of his friends who lived near Dakshineshwar told him, why don't you go to Sri Ramakrishna? Maybe he might help you. So his friend brought aim to Sri Ramakrishna. But see the fun. The friend only brought him, and that's it. Never he himself probably came again. We don't get to know much about the friend, but he worked as an instrument, and this meeting with Sri Ramakrishna changed, transformed Mahendranath Gupta's life. A person who was in such a dull moment of his life, at a low that he thought life was meaningless. He was, as I said, thinking of committing suicide, and it revolutionized him. He not only found purpose in life, he rather changed in turn the life of so many people. Then, Ramdas of, famous Ramdas of US, Rupert, right? Rupert. So he also mysteriously met Neem Karoli Baba in an obscure, remote village of Himalaya, whom hardly any people knew about even in India. But by chance, he came in contact with Neem Karoli Baba. That changed his life. And in turns, it changed so many other lives. So this is how divine grace works to bring the seeker, aspirant, in touch with the great people. Then great company, of course, means actual meeting with a great person, illumined person. But again, this might also include influence through books written by illumined people, or influence through a discourse or discourses of an illumined person. It might also mean influence through dream. That is, many people in their dreams, and in the dreams might be very vivid dreams where they meet great people and get spiritual guidance, instructions, which change their life for better. That also might mean by that time great company. And finally, even if we don't get the chance of getting such a great person of, great, who is illumined one, but we need not worry, because holy company is a substitute for great company. That is, when seekers of same ideologies with noble intentions come together, it is called a holy company, and it is a congenial one. And this collective effort to discuss spiritual matters, collective effort to contemplate God, collective effort to read holy things, that is called holy company. And it is very powerful, very efficacious for spiritual life. And as I said, how to recognize holy company? That after such a company, such a meeting, we shall find that it always elevates us, and it uplifts us. Okay, so even if sometimes it might also happen that people are meeting, reading something, but the effect is not elevating, is not uplifting, but rather it really has no such effect on our life. So in that case, only the form that we are meeting and reading something, so that alone cannot make holy company. Okay, if it elevates us, uplifts us, gives us enthusiasm in spiritual life, and infuses hope and optimism in our life, then it is holy company. So any such meeting, even our class, meeting like this also could be said a holy company if what we are doing collectively, it is inspiring us, elevating us, and uplifting us. So summary of this aphorism, it is through divine grace that we obtain company of the great or holy company. It is the holy company or company of great person, great people is the most precious thing we can have in our life, most precious thing. So this is not only my personal experience, but this is the common experience of all the seekers, that the most precious thing that energizes, or the only fuel, most important fuel which makes us keep going in spiritual life, it is the company of the great people, or company of fellow travelers who elevates us, uplifts us, and gives us enthusiasm and inspiration in our journey to this spiritual path. Narada will have still 2 more aphorisms on this theme of holy company or company of the great man, that we shall see in our next class. And if you have any question, any comments, you might, one thing you can talk to, you can unmute yourself and talk also. I have made that option open. Concentration and careful listening sound the main keys to get receptivity with great souls. Yes. Careful listening and concentration, right. The sayings of Sri Ramakrishna cite that when we come the clamorings of the mind, there comes a suspension of breath, or the state of kumbhaka. Can you please explain? Oh, okay, kumbhaka. Sri Ramakrishna said that through bhakti we can reach the state of kumbhaka. Okay, if we have intense feeling for God, and that alone can sometimes stop our breathing. We need not practice pranayama separately. Okay, so he says that even through devotion, this pranayama may happen. That is what he said about that. Any other question?
Swami, it's Victoria.
Yes.
Swami Vivekananda said that there will be a time in the future that there will be so few gurus that I'm not sure whether I'm getting this right, that we will have to be our own guru or find the guru within. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. So no, there are 2 things here. One thing he said, in future there will be realized souls everywhere.
Oh.
Illumined souls or rishis will be walking down the street. Okay, he was faithful about that. In future there will come a time when there will be plenty of illumined people who will be walking down the street. One thing. Second thing is that it is said that it is not only Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna himself said several times that after some time, after advancing for quite some time, our mind becomes our guru. Okay, that is, in the beginning we need the guidance, inspiration from outside ourselves, but with time our mind itself shows us the path. Okay, how mind becomes guru. In fact, last year I gave a talk on this topic itself, how mind becomes guru, a Sunday lecture that is also still available in YouTube. How our mind itself becomes our own guru. Holy company need not be from humans alone. Story of Avadhuta and his 24 gurus. Yes, this is called Upa Gurus. You know, Upa Gurus is or Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru. Shiksha Guru is could be many, from which you learn many things in life. Okay, but here we are speaking about holy company in a specific context, those who kindle divine love in our heart. So not learning anything and everything, we can say that it's the holy company. In our context, in the context of Narada Bhakti Sutra, we are concerned about what are the things that help us to cultivate devotion for God. So that comes from a great soul. To find the God within is a step towards spiritual transformation. That is, strengthen the self and strength within. Yes, true. Ultimately, you know, there is a saying too that one can have all the grace, divine grace, grace of one's teacher and fellow devotees. But if one does not have Atma Kripa, one's own grace, then nothing really matters. There is also this saying, Atma Kripa means if your own being does not cooperate with your own endeavor, then that all these things may not even work. Okay, so there are several types of teachings. Thank you. All right, so you must remember Atma Kripa. Thank you. Yes, Atma Kripa is our own grace, grace of our own Atman or our own inner light. That is also very important. Again, that was first kindled by some holy company, and that can be maintained by holy company and continuous association with holy company. By that is meant also holy books. Okay, so no matter how advanced we are, we continuously need the inspiration. Continuously we need to feed our this endeavor or effort. Otherwise the energy may be lacking sometime. So that may come in the form of reading elevating books. That's why that is the function of Sadhya. Narada, interestingly, in this book text, he will say that don't read any books other than devotional book. If you really want to have devotion in your life, don't read any other book other than devotional book. So we shall take that aphorism when the time comes, but that is what we, and it is, you know, in our tradition, from our joining, we have been told, or this what seniors Swamis tell us, don't read at the initial stages, don't read any book which is not been written by an illumined soul. Not written by an illumined soul, don't read those books, because then you will be confused because ideas are many. As I said, ideas are many, conviction is only few. Conviction, and conviction alone, that matters in spiritual life. Okay, all right, so see you next day, and we shall have a guided meditation. Before that,